The Able to Care podcast is sponsored by Able Training Support Limited, who build partnerships with organisations to develop confidence and competence in their team to promote positive outcomes for all. Find the link in the description. Hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. My name is Andy and your trainer for today. This is where I get caught into scripts as far as being a trainer as well. So I messed up my intro today massively, but do you know what? We'll leave it in. Just lets you know that I'm only human and flawed, and sometimes there's 7 takes on these things. So today's episode, I thought I'd talk about what we call duck syndrome. So I recently had to do a bespoke course for a particular organisation where there was a recognition that sometimes staff were dealing with very complex behaviours and difficult behaviours. They sometimes find emotionally overwhelming themselves. And this is a really important subject. I remember very early on in my career, in my teaching career particularly, when I was going into place, there was a setting where I went to this place where it was only a small learning disability home. They had about 6 residents, and one of the residents that the staff referred to was he ruled the roost, right? In the fact that he was a big guy. He had bipolar disorder. He was on the autistic spectrum. He was nonverbal. There was all sorts of complexities for him in the way that he had to cope with life. Unfortunately, this gentleman would engage in some aggressive behavior, and he used dominance and aggression and authority as a way of kind of feeling safe in the world and helping himself to cope and things like that. Okay. Some of the staff admitted they were so intimidated by him that if they saw him in a corridor, they would hide in a bedroom until he'd gone past. Now, straight away, if you saw people hiding from you, probably wouldn't build your self-esteem, making you feel good about yourself. But also, there's an element of, I can push them around, they're scared of me. So suddenly he was then almost having his aggressive behavior reinforced because the staff were terrified of him, but it was also leading to further negative behavior because his self-esteem was bad because nobody liked him. Okay. Or some staff were terrified of him, so it gave the impression they didn't like him. Understanding fear was always been a big important thing for me. Some of you may be aware of my story as far as I got mugged at knife point when I was 16, and that took me down the route of looking to explore human psychology for myself as well as for others. So understanding the fear reactions and stuff is really important. And I did a lot of stuff for myself around fear. Creating from a guy called Jeff Thompson, created a fear pyramid and started then working through the things I was least scared of, slowly building up my resilience, my ability to overcome fear to get to the point of that top of the fear triangle, like the thing I was most scared of no longer scared me anymore. There's also a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I always remember as well reading, and that kind of contributed as well. So I learned a few tactics over the years that have helped me as far as managing my fear response. And I've also put myself in situations where there has been high risk to my personal safety or even my perceived risk to personal safety, where I've utilized these skills, because they sometimes happen related to, something like that is an actual threat to my well-being as far as, physical violence or a threatening person. But it can also work when it comes to things that rationally, they aren't really a threat to my well-being, like a job interview or talking to somebody I fancy in a pub or, standing up on stage. Like realistically, that is never going to kill me, but my brain still interprets that going, yeah, that's still dangerous. That's still risky. So yeah, you need to prepare yourself, go into fight or flight. Alarm bell goes off. There's certain strategies that I found useful, and the principle, I can't remember where duck syndrome comes from, but duck syndrome is the premise that on the surface, calm, serene, not a care in the world, even if underneath the water, my little legs are going like the clappers. That's the concept. Okay. In so much as other people can't see your fear like you feel it. So people can't see your sweaty palms. People can't see your racing heart. People can't see your knotted stomach. But you feel it, and therefore that makes you more self-conscious, makes you more suddenly think everybody can tell how nervous I am. But a lot of it is invisible. But some people are better at masking it than others. And I've, over the years, some people say like, oh, you come across so confidently, you seem so confident. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a duck. I've brilliantly learned how to mask, to hide any level of nerves in myself, even when I've gone for a pee 3 times before I came up on stage and did this. My hands are sweaty. I'm really regretting wearing a light coloured shirt today. Whatever it is, can you see the sweat patches? I just pretend it's hot. So little tactics that I've learned over a period of time. One is that duck syndrome mentality, shifting the mentality. Other people can't tell as badly as you think they can tell. So it's then about managing the rest. The fake it till you make it kind of premise is this is one of the few rarer circumstances I think this is appropriate. Another thing is the managing our inner self-talk, our Mr. Negative. And there's been numerous influences on me using that term, the Mr. Negative, the inner opponent, the devil on your shoulder, however you want to refer to it. The thing that tells you, and now what we have to remember about that voice, don't do this. What if you mess up? What if you can't do good at it? You're no good. Like we think of it being there for a bad reason, but actually it's there to keep us safe. It's there to kind of protect us. It's there to make sure no harm comes to us. The problem with this inner voice, it's not very good at picking up genuine threats to not threats. So it can't tell the difference. Okay. So knowing this inner voice and recognizing that inner voice in yourself is really important. And I remember reading an early thing, which was a way of testing this is like hold your breath for as long as you can. I guarantee your inner voice will tell you this is stupid. You need to take a breath. Come on, it's causing pain. This isn't good for you. That voice is what you hear telling you to take the breath before you actually physically have to take the breath. Your brain will kick in to keep yourself safe before your body needs necessarily to take that breath. Maybe I should put a disclaimer in here at this point that only do this if, unless you're asthmatic or stuff like that, just be careful. Another example you can do is what's called a Roman chair, where you sit up against a wall, back to the wall, legs out in a seated position, but no chair there, and hold it for as long as you can. And I guarantee that inner opponent will tell you to stop for whatever reason. It'll make up good excuses. This is stupid. This is painful. You can't do this any longer, way before your physical body does. Learning that inner voice, getting used to hearing it, listening to it, and being aware of it is first step. Because then once I know it, once I recognize the inner voice, I can then argue with it. Now, some people find it really easy to go, what if you mess it up? I'm not going to mess it up. What if they hurt you? They're not going to hurt me. And they can argue with themselves in their head. I always find that really difficult. So what I found more useful for me is a single phrase, a mantra, which is you can handle it. What if you mess up? You can handle it. What if you forget everything you're going to say? You can handle it. What if they hurt you? You can handle it. What if they make an allegation? You can handle it. Okay. So if you can handle the worst case scenario, if you can handle whatever that inner voice throws at you, well, there's nothing to be scared of. You can handle it. So I found that a really useful mantra, and I've done it before where I pre-prepare to situations. So I'll like going into something I'm really nervous about. I may sit in the car for like half an hour before, kind of narrating to myself, what if you forget everything? You can handle it. What if they're horrible? You can handle it. What if you forget what you're going to say? What if your laptop breaks down? Whatever, you can handle it. Okay, so whatever it is, you can handle it. Fine. But that takes practice. This isn't something you click your hand and start doing. It was something I had to practice and practice and practice to be able to do and get good at. The other thing that your brain sometimes does when you're going into a nervous state is, or two things. One, these are physical. One is you stop breathing properly, or you tense up. And sometimes you can't tell how tense you are and the fact that everything's stiff, you're clenching your jaw, your shoulders are kind of tightened. You don't even realize you're doing it. So I always sort of say, just check yourself. Just lift your shoulders up, drop them down, just see where your body is. Are you clenching your jaw? Do you need to relax it? Are you tensing your fists? Do you need to relax them? Change the behavior to change the feelings. If I'm tapping my fingers, stop tapping your fingers, you'll feel less impatient. If you're pacing up and down, sit down, you'll feel less impatient. It's going into CBT-esque kind of behavioral therapy. The other thing is the breathing, like, am I actually breathing normally? Am I almost holding my breath or taking short breaths? So take a slow breath. Exhaling slowly activates parasympathetic nervous system. So slow that breathing down. Do some 4-count breathing. Just take one, one deep breath. You might find completely changed. In fact, those of you listening, just take it now. Just take that breath. Pause this for a second. Take a big, deep breath. All the stuff we teach about resilience, about well-being, about caregiver well-being, about stress, just take a pause, take a breath. It can make a world of difference. Pop in the comments. Did that make you feel better? Did you just remembering to take a breath actually have any impact on you? Or are you feeling more stressed? Because sometimes that happens to people. Okay. Checking your own behavior, I think, is really important. Last thing I want to kind of refer to, looking at coping with or activating the duck syndrome. Well, there's a couple of things. So one is being in the here and now. When we experience fear, our brain is terrible at sometimes running into the future, looking at the but what if, or running into the past to go, but this happened last time, and what if I do this again, and what if I mess up? And you look at previous mistakes, previous situations, and you hold them then to the present without any evidence that that's going to be repeated. So this is very common as well, where we go into the past and into the future. Okay, so how can I stop myself stay in the moment? So if you do a search, because I haven't got time to go through loads of different examples, and there's some that work really well for me and work better for others, but grounding techniques, if you've never heard of grounding techniques, please look into grounding techniques. Because for those of you working care, these are things that you can work with and develop with those you're supporting. Them having grounding techniques is going to be incredibly helpful for them. So anybody having grounding techniques are what works for them. So grounding helps you to be in the here and now. Because a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of stuff, all this stuff where it takes you into the past, takes you into the future. So grounding techniques force you to be in the moment. So some of you may have heard of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or the 5s technique, where with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you have to find 5 things that you have to see 5 things. You then have to listen to 4 things. Then you have to touch 3 things, smell 2 things, and taste 1 thing. Okay, or label them. Now, that's not necessarily going to take you too long, because looking at the desk in front of me, I can see 5 different things. I can hear the sound. So I can hear a buzz of the laptop. I can hear a buzz of the lights that are in the room. I can even hear a little bit of traffic outside. Oh, and I just heard a member of staff open a door. So that's the 4 things. Okay, I can even hear my own breathing would be another one in there if I can't find anything else. What 3 things can I touch? Well, I've got some paper here. I've got my phone surface, and I can touch my own leg. There we go. That's 3. 2, I can smell my own breath. It's all right at the minute. I can smell like the paper itself or some ink or something like that. So very quickly I can find things to smell. And lastly then is taste. And this is what people always struggle with. I'm not going to run to the fridge and find myself something. I might just even lick my own hand or see what that paper tastes like. So I just taste, all right? It doesn't need to be any specific. It doesn't need to take long as well. This might be like, if I could do this in kind of 5 seconds, it just helps me to be in that moment. That may feel quite a lot for some people to do. So you can now make it a little bit more structured or a little bit quicker and simpler, like just find 5 blue things in the room quickly. So I can see a lead there. I can see a button or remote control over there. There's a bit on the tissue packet over there that you guys can't see. There's a bit of tape over here. Okay, so I found very quickly kind of 4 blue things. In fact, there's 2 wires. There's a light on there. So there we go. That's my 5 blue things that I've now found. But straight away, that forced me to be in the moment, where I am right now, okay, rather than the past and the future. So grounding techniques can be really useful, and there's loads of different ones out there. Obviously, many of you may be familiar or heard the term mindfulness as well, which is essentially kind of a way of being in the here and now, doing other things you're doing. And there's some amazing techniques out there related to mindfulness. Again, I might do an episode of that, or a few of the things that I quite like as far as mindfulness is concerned. I sometimes just find that mindfulness just feels like it takes a bit longer, whereas I might need a quick grounding technique, especially in confrontational situations with very difficult behavior. I might need it quite quick. I ain't got time to spend 10 minutes focusing on my breathing or imagining I'm chewing a raisin. It is this case of, and I'll explain that one day. It may be a case of I've only got a few seconds to do this to get myself grounded in the moment. Okay. Last technique I will refer to, and again, for more information, you can there'll be loads of videos on this specifically, but there's a technique that comes from neuro-linguistical programming, or NLP, as some of you will have heard of, called anchoring. And anchoring is where you connect a feeling with a gesture. So it's a bit of a kind of a step-by-step process, and you do need to spend some time doing this in advance. And again, you will need to practice it in advance to be able to do it. It isn't just a case of use this tomorrow. But let's say I'm looking to feel more confident in situations. What I would do is I'd imagine myself in a situation where I've been confident in the past, which could be in my own home. It could be when I'm doing the thing I'm really good at. It could be with my own friends and family. Wherever a situation, and there will be one where, because when I'm not confident, no, you're not confident in certain situations at certain times. There's many times that you are confident. It's just we have to find that specific. So find that specific. When are you confident? Okay. And it could be even when you're reading a book. That's when I'm confident because I'm good at reading. Doesn't matter. But I want you to imagine yourself in that state and you really focus on that feeling of you in that confident state, how you feel, how it feels in your body, where you are. And you try and engage with many of your kind of senses, if you like, in imagining. So it becomes the dream that feels real. And there's a lot of evidence with visualization that the brain doesn't realize that these things aren't happening. It activates as if it actually is. But what you do is you then anchor that with a particular gesture. And this comes from classical conditioning from Pavlov's dog. If anybody's ever heard of the experiment with Pavlov's dog, that Pavlov noticed that dogs salivated when they heard the feet of the person stepping that brought them their food. So the food caused them to salivate, to eat, but then the stepping of the feet on the floor let the dogs know food's coming. They started salivating. So then he started doing the same thing. He'd ring a bell before he presented food. So then the bell would activate the salivation. That's that classical conditioning. Okay. So as far as that Pavlov's dog, so similar to yourself, you are connecting a certain gesture with that certain emotion, that visualization. So I was saying, find a quiet room, imagine yourself in that confident state or in that state that you want to be in, maybe even happy, whatever it is, and then find a gesture, which could be clenching your fist. It could be pressing on your leg. It could be pinching your ear. It could be just pressing your finger and your thumb and little finger together, for instance. Okay. So what I do is I lay there, sit there. I imagine myself in that state with as much input as I can, as much kind of imagination as I can. I then squeeze those two things together while I do it. Now, this is going to take a few occasions to do. It isn't just one off and then it's fixed. So you do that on a few occasions to get there, and people vary on how long it takes, right? But what you can then do, potentially, it's not 100% effective, but it works for many people. When you then go into that situation, if you're feeling low in confidence, you then do your little anchoring technique, and that can often help you to feel more confident because your brain triggers, hey, you're doing that. Therefore, you must be, it triggers those thoughts and feelings. For those of you who are skeptical, because I'm a skeptical person. You ever want a conversation about skepticism? I'm always in the mood for. I don't believe anything without significant evidence. But there's a wonderful kind of technique. So smiling makes you happier. Even putting a pen in your mouth, causing the corners of your mouth to go up, can make you feel happier because your brain's made a connection that when I'm happy, my mouth does this, and when my mouth does this, I must be happy. It's a feedback loop that we generate. Okay, and that can be that's a very similar principle to the whole concept of anchoring. Okay, so these are all little tips and tricks we can use that if you are dealing with complex behaviors, if you are finding yourself overwhelmed, and for places I've been to when I'm teaching things like restraint training and stuff like that, where staff will see an incident and rather than managing it, they hope it goes away, leaving it to other staff to then didn't even know the bottle of Coke was getting shaken. They're just suddenly having to deal with the fallout and the mess afterwards because nobody told them because the person who saw it was too scared to interact, overwhelmed. And they went into flight mode, right? Rather than actually supporting it and dealing with it. Or staff go into fight mode too quickly. They start going into restraint quicker than they needed to because they feel anxious, they feel nervous. Or they start hiding in the toilet or deciding it's now time to make a cup of tea or a coffee when an incident occurs because of that fight or flight response. And it's so important that it's okay to feel the fear, but if fear is holding us back, if fear is affecting our ability to be able to do our job properly, be able to keep other people safe, keep ourselves safe sometimes as well. You know, fear can be a good thing, but it can lead us to put ourselves in more vulnerable situations if we're misreading the context or misreading the circumstance. But that ability to control and regulate our fear positively is a hugely beneficial thing, especially as calm is as contagious as fear and panic. So if I am trying to de-escalate a situation, if I'm trying to help a child to regulate, if I'm trying to help an individual with dementia be less distressed, if I'm trying to help a person with mental health conditions who's feeling overwhelmed to feel more secure and safe, well, I need to signal that I'm safe. And the only way I can signal I'm safe is if I'm calm. If I'm not calm, my communication is, you're not safe because I don't feel safe. Even it may be them that's causing me to feel unsafe, doesn't matter. Okay. Think of it that animals pick up on fear. They smell fear. So this is where, and human beings are just different form of animal. Okay. So hopefully you found that useful. Loads of information in there, and maybe one day I'll delve into these. But if you've got comments on this, and if you think this would be useful, please like, share, and pass it on to somebody. But comment any of these techniques. Have you tried them? Have you done them before? Have you heard of them? Have you not heard of them? But give us a like or a comment. You have a great day.